Okay, guys, I'm probably not opening up a can of worms with this topic or anything. I don't think this has any potential for volatility at all. So we know a lot of what's going to happen, or typically happens in these type of streams, is we're going to have the hardcore, ever-loving Trump supporters telling us that everything is perfect, never been a better president ever. It's time to put him up on Rushmore, and the people who just absolutely despise him over the top, so saying that he's a fascist and he's Hitler and Satan and all these, excuse me, all these all these other complimentary things. I'm just hold on a second, guys. Here. Okay, just checking something. Now, we already streamed once today, so I have no idea if YouTube is going to grace us with any number of... Something wrong here. With any number of notifications at all. Again, I apologize. I got... Something is off in a setting here. All right, I got that there. Let me look over here. Do, 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 do. 47 months to go, Jeff says. Counting them down, huh, buddy? No, that ain't it. All right, we got that, right? Just seems like something... I think I have a setting off here. Okay. All right, that's all set. Okay. Now we should be better. Hi, Al. ZA says, "Hey, man, I've been subscribed to you since I was 12. I'm now 23. I'm so old." Yeah. And your live just popped up. Want to say I love your channel and videos. Growing up, I hope you and your son are doing great. We're doing good. Thanks, my friend. That side profile, so much hair. I don't know if I'm keeping it or not, Big Green. I'm gonna let if it doesn't annoy me too much, I'm gonna let the top grow in though, just to see what it looks like, because the top grows in slower. I see as I've gotten older than the sides. I'm gonna let the top grow in, see what it looks like, and then I'll decide. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a permanent fixture or not. But I was today. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw one of the latest things that Trump's looking to do is, well, it had been discussed on the campaign trail, but now I guess it's something that's actually being seriously looked into, is eliminating the IRS, and that would be just fine with me. That would be a big, huge plus for him in my book for a number of reasons. We talked about that before in streams, that the tax structure in America, the income tax structure, is so insanely convoluted and, oh man, just so unnecessarily complicated. And I just honestly believe that a nationwide sales tax is a much better method of paying for the things that our nation needs than is a income tax. There's definitely a setting off here. We never have chat quite this slow, and I'm never sure if YouTube had changed a default on me when I started up this stream. That's what I'm trying to see. We never, ever have a chat moving this slowly. And it's not even catching up over here. What the hell is going on? Big Green says, "I'm glad I'm getting my info from you. Whenever I hear about something that Trump's going to do from other sources, it's only the dumb things." Yeah, well, and that's the unfortunate nature of certainly of news media. You guys know, as somebody who studied journalism, I have absolutely no use for the state of current journalistic affairs. And that really annoys me that we've gotten to where we have. Because again, it was something that was a passion of mine when I was younger. And it's just sad that the whole industry, at least at the top, I mean, the national news companies, you can still find solid journalism on more local levels, but the national news companies are all about clicks. And it doesn't matter which side they favor. It's the same with both of them. It's all sensationalism. It's it's not necessarily fake news. It's incomplete news and slanted news. You write an article and discuss all the issues that fit your personal narrative, and just ignore anything that might fly in the face of that narrative. And you see it all the time. And again, I went to journalism school. One of the very first things you learn is when you're writing an article, you don't put any of your personal thoughts, opinions, or beliefs into that article. You don't even try and slide them in there as subliminally as possible. They just are meant to stay out of it. You just give the who, what, when, where, why, and that's it. And that's just long, long gone. Yeah, something's wrong. I don't know what I did, Big Green. You see this? You're with me every stream. We never have a chat this slow, especially a chat on politics this slow. So something's going on. I don't know if some people can't post to the chat, and I don't know how the hell am I going to find where that setting is to see if we've. Hold on, guys, and again, I apologize. I'm just trying to figure out. All right, let me get down here and find out what it says about comments. I don't know if it's holding comments for review or. Okay. Yeah, it used to be about just the facts. Absolutely. Couldn't. Okay, so that is still. All right, and it's still going out there. Okay. Now, I don't know. All I can do is hope whatever it is, YouTube gets it squared away. But the IRS thing. Hi, Shelby. Cancel culture is the reason. I don't think cancel culture is the reason that the media, that journalists have taken a nosedive. I think that's simply because it's become acceptable to journalists and to the journalism field to be activist journalists. I think that's just become something that's accepted now. And again, having gone to journalism school, you can point me to any of the mainstream media outlets, and again, that's all of them. I don't care which way they slant politically, all of them. And if you read their articles carefully, you will see where pertinent information is intentionally left out if it doesn't fit a specific narrative. And you won't have to go through very many articles to find quote unquote journalists who are putting their own thoughts and feelings into the article, which is again the absolute antithesis of what journalism is supposed to be. Probot boy says Trump has been nothing but shit. But why? We want to talk about specifics. Why? What's he done that you find objectionable? Elle says, I'm curious if there were laws that banned ads on media and instead they were subscription-based or subsidized, would be less sensational. That's interesting. On one hand, you could say, yeah, that would help, but on the other hand, I don't know. They would still need to sensationalize and write clickbait headlines to get you to subscribe. So I don't even think that would be a solution. That's interesting though, but no, I get what you're saying. You know, if you're ad based, you need to just get as many clicks as you can, so people have to see the ad, and hell, they'll see the ad before they even get to your article and realize that it's garbage. But I think the same would hold true if they were strictly subscription based as well, because they still got to sell those subscriptions. It just really frustrates me with how it seems like how easily mainstream journalism has been willing to just toss aside all journalistic integrity. N1 Sex MDS says, I never know what's true and what's not. Yeah, that's the problem with politics. Everything out there is so biased one way or the other. It's tough. Whenever I read a headline now, whether it's on a media site or if it's on social media, whenever you read a headline, you have to search it and read a bunch of articles on it so you can get all the different perspectives on it, and then try and figure out for yourself where the truth is. I will say this though, if you say you're on Twitter X there's no place where the rage engagers thrive more. There are people posting stuff there that's just absolute bullshit every day, every minute, every moment of the day. That's just crap, and it gets a certain base riled up, and it gets them a lot of clicks, through rage engagement. So the thing is, when you read anything as a title or anything as a post, what you have to do is at least go through and read all the comments, because no matter what stance someone takes, there will be somebody in the comments with an opposite perspective. And then when you see the give and take, you can at least typically, you can start to see where one thing makes a lot more sense than the other. And many times it's a slam dunk, because somebody will come out with some of that hyperbolic nonsense, and then you'll see a few posts down where somebody posts some information that is factual and just destroys the whole thing. CJP says, during the Persona stream, you mentioned having a positive opinion about Trump going after the IRS. I do. I was curious if you could elaborate. Absolutely. I would love to see that happen. Now, and let me preface this, and I'll tell you exactly why, but let me preface this by saying I'm one of these few people. IRS employees get a really bad rap, and all of us in America know that. It's like they've been a running gag for years, that they're just vile Wolverines looking to rip you to shreds and destroy your life financially. Because, I do this for a living, so, I don't get a paycheck. So I have to deal with the IRS every year and filing my taxes, paying my taxes. So I deal with them a lot. I've had to contact them many times over the years. I can honestly say that the employees at the IRS, in my experience, have been some of the nicest and most helpful people I've ever encountered. Certainly the most helpful people I've ever encountered when dealing with a government entity. Now that said, I hate the whole tax system in America. It's far, far too complicated. It doesn't need to be this complicated at all. There are solutions to it, like a flat tax, things of that nature. But this plan, in a nutshell, what I've been able to read up on it so far, is basically you get rid of income tax, and in its place you have a national tax on goods. I think they said they believed it would be 23%. I'm all for that. And there is a caveat in there. They have already addressed the fact that if people are under a certain level, if they're under a poverty level, there will be some sort of, there will be money given back to them each month to make up for that, because it's just, that could price, if you're talking about people that are that low on the income scale, they aren't paying income taxes anyway. They're at 0%. So if you raise that on them when they weren't paying taxes to begin with, you're going to have people going hungry. So they do address that in there. The reason I say that is I can do my own math. I know what I have to send to the government every month to pay my taxes, to make sure at the end of the year I paid my taxes. So I can easily take my budget for what I pay on foods, clothes, this, that, and the other, even factoring in when you buy a new car over the 5 years or whatever the loan. If they can honestly do it for even 25%, if they can even do it for 25%, I would, and I'm just a typical taxpayer, I'm nothing special, but I know I would come out way ahead. Way ahead. I would come out at least 15 to 20% ahead. 15 to 20% less I would pay in that extra tax as opposed to putting the money I have to put aside every month for the IRS. And what's more important to me, and this is the part that doesn't get talked about a lot, when you pay income tax, you pay any tax of that type. You're just paying that tax and leaving it up to the government to use it properly. Well, that we know it doesn't matter which party's in power. The government never uses our money efficiently, ever. It's just been one big clusterfucker after another. Every time that the federal government has undertaken a huge spending or redistribution operation, they have screwed it up. But what happens if you turn that into a tax? It's okay, again, let's just say 25% on all goods. You're not going to get hammered, I don't think, at that full rate at the store. And here's why. I'll use Amazon and Walmart as examples. They're in direct competition. I don't know about you guys, but if we need something for the house, whatever it may be, typically that's what we'll do. We'll look, see what it costs at Amazon. We have a Walmart not far, what it costs at Walmart. If it's something you don't have to go get right now, and we'll decide which one is the better deal, because everybody's looking to save a few bucks wherever you can. So now if you're paying a tax on goods, and that's how the government gets their money, you still have those two entities. You still have Walmart and Amazon trying to keep those prices as low as they can, especially now that there's that tax as well. When Amazon and Walmart need to keep their prices down, they put pressure on their distributors and on the people who provide their products to give them a better deal. It's always going to have that pressure because Walmart wants to stay below Amazon. Amazon wants to stay below Walmart. There's always going to be that pressure pushed all the way up the line to try and keep the prices as low as they can. And you don't have that kind of pressure when you're just paying an income tax. Okay, let's see. Let me catch some more of these. Marasu says, I'm just hoping the country survives the next 2 years till midterms. But those are general statements, Marasu. Why? What are you afraid is going to happen in the next 2 years? I wouldn't get your hopes up too high. Well, for the Senate's got little to no chance of changing hands in 2 years. Very little chance. The House could, but both look good for Republicans from the seats that have to be defended. The Senate is probably not changing. You might have a shot at the House. But why? I mean, that's what we're here for. Let's talk specifics. Spazdev says, I haven't liked his governmental role choices either, like Cash Patel, Elon Musk, RFK, etc. Again, I understand that, but those are general statements. I'm looking for specifics as to what people like or don't like. Exile Cage says, I don't have to stay and watch, but Trump's latest tax plan gives a massive spike in taxes to anyone making less than $300K a year. It's ridiculous. I haven't seen that at all. You'd have to show me details on that. I haven't seen anything that points to that direction at all. And now maybe I'm missing something. Alex says, not a voter of Trump, but stuck to his word on tariffs. I think it will end up better for Americans long term. I'm curious to see how people feel short term as we already struggle with living expenses. Yeah, you're right. Well, that's the key to tariffs with 100% is you will have some initial discomfort, no doubt. I'm not a big fan of what he's looking to do to Canada and Mexico. And even if he wanted to impose tariffs, I think those are too steep. What he's doing with China, I'm fine with. And as far as tariffs in general, I don't have an issue with creating or raising tariffs when it's to try and negate trade imbalances. But I think what he suggested with Canada and Mexico was beyond the pale, was far too much. Even if you're going to put on a tariff, 25% is just a crazy number. Time for Fishing said Trump has done more in a month for good than good for nothing Biden did in 4 years. Well, obviously Trump has a whole different agenda than Biden. Certainly, uh, I think I like a lot of what Trump is done or is suggesting, but I think it's too early to make a conclusion about how good those things are because it's just too early on. They haven't been, nothing has been put into place and given time to show its effectiveness or lack thereof. I do like the securing of the border and the removal of people who are here illegally. I do support that. Shaw King says tariffs are not going to help long term either. Oh, well, you have to be specific about which ones, but yes, tariffs can help. To say they're not, you have no way of knowing that for sure. If it can bring some production back to America, that's a good thing. Whether you believe it will or not, that's up to you. But you can't make a blank statement like that because nobody knows what the future holds on something like that. Angel says, didn't Trump have trouble making Mexico pay for the wall? It feels like we've been through this already. I don't know. That was a stupid thing to say to begin with, making Mexico pay for the wall. See, and yeah, even though I voted for Trump, I'm more than willing to discuss his foibles as well. I never liked that whole build the wall thing because, and I said it right from the get-go, I'm for making the border secure. The people who work on the border every day, Border Patrol, when you listen to them, when they're interviewed, it's not always wall. There are sections where, and they'll tell you where it is, where the wall comes in handy. But in other areas, it's manpower. And what I'm hearing a lot of is mostly technology. They need more technological help. So when he kept saying, going to build a wall, going to build a wall, it's like, dude, that's not even how you should be presenting that because they will tell you they don't need a wall covering the entire length of the border. They need this, they need that. Listen to the people down there that are working on those front lines. So I always thought that build the wall thing, I mean, wall comes in handy. You got to remember during Biden's presidency, there was more wall built. But I'll give them credit. The wall was built where the Border Patrol was saying walls will be effective here. So it's not that walls are a bad idea. It's a bad idea to say you need a wall the entirety of the border. Spazdev says, I think he's focusing on things that are stupid, like changing Gulf of Mexico to Gulf. Yeah, that's I hear things like that and I just tune it out. Who gives a shit? Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I mean, I'm not worried about him focusing on it. I like to think that I think it's a stupid thing. I don't see any reason for it, but I don't think it's something that takes up a lot of hours of your day. Making Canada the 51st state, agree, that's ridiculous. And just like Biden sending money to Israel and not focusing on us. Well, I've always believed that we send far too much money overseas. Now, granted, there are some situations where it's necessary. And there are some potentially volatile situations where it's necessary, where if you send money over there, you keep somebody from trying to come here. That I get, but yeah, we've been spreading far too many funds around the world that we don't need to and shouldn't be. As far as, like I say, I don't disagree with the Gulf of America versus Gulf of Mexico thing. That's just... come on, who gives a shit? Stop. Let's see. Elle says, I have a major problem with the moves he's been making against our allies, specifically the slap to the EU and land grabs upon Canada and Greenland. Yeah, the Canada and Greenland things are just... I don't know where he comes up. I understand what he's saying. I don't know. I'm not even going to attempt to try and get inside Trump's mind. I don't know if the whole Canada thing is tongue in cheek or if he's serious. But, the thing that gets me about it too, though, why on earth would he want Canada to be the 51st state when Canada has historically voted liberal? I mean, with with the amount of population in that 51st state, they'd have a shit ton of electoral college votes. I don't think he's thinking that through well at all. The whole Greenland thing, the only way that could happen is there's a process, and the people there would want to have it happen and everything. I don't even know why he's interested in that, but Jumo Joe says, I think Trump has been doing a good job. Jay Young says, Trump is a dictator. Right, but see, there's no conversation to be had, Jay Young, about Trump as a dictator. Why? I mean, talk. That's why I like having these streams. Talk specifics. Not talking points or bullet points. What is he doing that upset you? He was ranked the worst U.S. president in history by historians. Well, as I said, I feel about quote unquote historians the same as I do about the media. Everybody's got a political bent nowadays. And even if it's historians, so what? It's still a matter of opinion. Let's talk actual factual things. What is he doing that makes him a dictator? Craig says we need to work together. Humans, as billions of humans treat the magic. You don't need to go all caps. That's really obnoxious. One way or another, like trash, and you wonder why the natural responses from man, nature, animal science happens bad. I have no idea what that meant. Worst U.S. president in my lifetime? I don't know, Mago. See, it's tough because worst is subjective. Because everybody has their own personal beliefs, their own personal structure of how they like things done. So me saying worse would just likely mean it's just a president that had perspectives that are 180 degrees polar opposite of mine. Doesn't mean they're the worst. I think probably Carter, I always felt, was a very ineffective president, but I wouldn't really throw stones at anybody and say the worst. Shadow E1 says promises to lower prices on day one. Blame Joe Biden. That's why you can't. Well, of course, it's ridiculous to promise. It's 100% right. You can't promise to lower price on day one. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. There's no way to do it. And that's part of Trump's constant hyperbole. You can promise to lower prices and hopefully you have a plan of action to back that up. But no, you're going to wave a magic wand on day one? Yeah. Well, we all know, I think we can all agree. And again, even if I voted for Trump, we can all agree a lot of what he says is just nonsensical. I have to look past that and look at what he's actually trying to do and see how well it aligns with, my own political beliefs. That's why I'm independent. There'll never be a president because I go back and forth too much on as far as sides of the political aisle, what I believe. So there'll never be a president that goes right down the line with me. His recent executive order to be the person that can interpret law as both unconstitutional and authoritarian. Well, that's why we have a court system. That's the good thing about having a court system. He says a lot of things that he's going to do that he can't legally do, and just as in the first time, he won't be able to do. Handing over huge amounts of unchecked power to a billionaire? Well, what unchecked power has been handed over to Elon Musk? As I've seen, I would hardly call trying to trim excessive spending from the government unchecked power. Is he he's allowing the DOGE office to do exactly what he said he would do when he was running for president, which is to find waste and get rid of it. Now, again, it remains to be seen how effective it is. They certainly have identified huge dollar amounts of areas to be cut. We'll see what that effect is. Dr. Manhattan says Biden was clearly a puppet. Dude couldn't make a full sentence that made sense. Almost like me, but at least I don't run for president. Well, I think Biden was in really, really rough shape by the end of his presidency, and we all saw that in the debate, and we had all been seeing it prior, but the debate was where nobody could deny it anymore, and that was actually sad to see, because I followed politics my whole adult life. Biden's been in office my whole adult life. He literally has. And I never have hated the guy. So it was sad to see what he turned into. He was always, as I said before, he was always a gaffe machine. Joe Biden, his whole career, he was known to sometimes say things that were out there a little bit, or just put his mouth into gear before his brain. But it was simple gaffes. And then by the end, it was something much, much more than that. And that's too bad. Shady Sam says the court system he has filled up. I'm sorry, Curtis, the man is Nazi. Supporters are openly Nazis. I'm honest to discuss why you're supporter of this man. Goodbye. Oh, that's Shady Sam. I completely understand. That is absolutely typical of the general moronic political take nowadays. If you don't agree with me, everybody doesn't agree with me as a Nazi. First of all, do you have any idea exactly what Nazi beliefs were? You trivialize the death of 6 million Jewish people when you try to equate somebody like Trump as a Nazi. It just trivializes the whole thing. By all means, Shady Sam, you should definitely get out. I think that would be much better for all. Jay Young. Oh, Jesus Christ. Now we got one of these. He's ignoring my comments now because I'm right. Do you see how fast the chat's going, Jay Young? Get over yourself a little bit. I'll even scroll up for you if it'll make you feel better. I look down, I see a comment, and I respond to it. Jay Young, you voted for Trump and will regret it. People are already regretting voting for him. I don't know any. I think you spend a lot of time on social media because the word got out to the rage engagers that's what they should be posting right now, is that they all know people who are regretting voting for Trump. But you say, well, he's ignoring my post because he knows I'm right. You haven't said anything. You've just given your opinions on things. You haven't given anything up for discussion. Oh, excuse me. Spazdev says, I think Trump is garbage, but he ain't a Nazi, ain't trying to kill anyone. Again, that's the nature of politics nowadays. People are just out of their freaking minds to where, and it is still over. No matter how badly people want you to believe it's something bigger, it is over just a difference of beliefs, different belief structures, and people just can't handle it anymore. Ronald Jenks says the term Nazi, dictator, bigots, etc. has lost all meaning to the point where people throwing out these words literally do not know the definition of them. No, we are definitely living in a buzzword society. People find certain words and attach themselves to them, and that's what they run with. Angel's got a good point. Angel said, I miss it when politics was boring instead of insane. You're right. And that's true, Angel, especially when you've lived as long as I have. Back in the day, politics were boring. Now, don't get me wrong. There's always been the right. There's always been the left. But even back in the days of the hippies and the establishment, back in the 60s and 70s, it was nothing like it is now. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. Elon Musk straight up supports the German political group Exile Cage, says, that are known to support Hitler's ideals. He tweets about them a lot more than he should. I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know that to be true or false. So there's nothing I can say on that. Chrome says, I'm going to be honest. I don't think the right is anywhere near as bad as the left in general. I guess it depends on what you're as if we're talking as bad when it comes to just being off the deep end about politics. I would tend to agree with that. Yeah. CJP says also, I'm not trying to pick a fight, but Nazis were socialists like many anti-Trump people. I don't love them, but I think that's a funny oversight. Well, we don't have any politicians in America right now, right or left, that are on a level with Nazis. The politicians with whom I disagree the most fervently and vehemently are not Nazis, nor are they looking to accomplish anything nearly as sinister as Nazis, but people just, the emotions run overtime. Just like you're saying, like, what was his name? Sam or whatever it was. They get into a frenzy. You believe something different than I do, and I can't deal with this. I have to go. It's sad. It's really pathetic. King Arshel says, what do you think about the situation in Ukraine and calling Zelensky a dictator? He seems kind of pro-Russian, no? That's a tough subject for me, because obviously Russia was the aggressor here, and it was bullshit for them ever. And Ukraine is a sovereign nation, and them invading. However, right when it started, because I fully admit I don't know much of anything about the Ukraine. I read up on it a lot. Ukraine's government is shady. And we talk about Nazis. There are parts of the Ukraine that are heavily Nazi. Now, I'm not saying that makes what Russia did right, but when you have Zelensky doing things like, canceling all elections and stuff like that, I understand they're in a time of war, but it does give you pause a little bit. I don't think Trump should be calling Zelensky a dictator. No, personally, I do not think Zelensky is a dictator. I do not like how Russia conducts themselves by any stretch. I'm not a huge fan of Ukraine. I would like to just see somehow the whole thing put to rest. Well, I think everybody would like to see that. Let's see. Balder Aviation says Nazi belongs in a category similar to Khmer Rouge and ISIS. These are people who had their backs to the wall and saw violence as their only way out. The U.S. is not in a dire situation like that. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing. And to me, that's what I've always felt. I just think it's so disrespectful to the people who actually died at the hands of the Nazis to say that any politician in America right now holding office in America is a Nazi. Angel says, maybe I've been online too much. I'm worried the word Nazi doesn't faze me as much. It probably should. That happens with so many words. When you take a word, and a lot of that is 100% the fault of social media and rage engagers. You get these buzzwords that they know will get people charged up, and they just pound them out there. And the word doesn't have to fit appropriately at all, but they know if they use it, then they'll get the engagement that they so desperately need. And then unfortunately, you have people following these accounts who buy the drivel that is pecked out on their devices. Excuse me. In the 50s, people used the word commie the same. Well, in the 50s, though, yeah, but at least back in the 50s, we were at direct odds, with communist Russia. But you're right. Then it became, and you're right, they did. There actually was a communist threat, but you are absolutely right. They would use that to anybody basically who differed with them politically. You're right. They threw that around way too much. Waffle says, Curtis, could you explain why you're against the one-payer healthcare system? Just curious, caught me by surprise. Yeah. Um, I have yet to see our government effectively run anything that talks about major dollars effectively. When you start talking about all of us contributing, giving our money to the government so they can provide us the health care, I just think that's an absolute recipe for disaster. And I think there are other means, I think there are other methods that would work much better, much more fluidly. And a lot of people have a misconception, especially outside of America, because the healthcare here, and trust me, the healthcare system here needs a lot of work, a lot of attention. But there are millions and millions of people in America who are fine with their healthcare, who absolutely love their healthcare. I'm one of them. It wasn't by accident. When I was a younger man and I was looking for where I wanted to make my career working, where I wanted to stay, that was one of the key ingredients you looked for. And so I have phenomenal health care. I have health care that I would say is just from what, and this is, I can only base single payer health care, my views on it based on what you guys have told me over the years, because we have this conversation a lot. And we've got a lot of people here from the UK, a lot of Canadian folks here. Well, I'll put it to you this way. My health care costs me nothing. And I mean, I don't pay anything monthly. And if I go to the doctor, I have a $15 max copay. If I go to the emergency room, I have a $75 max copay. And that wasn't by accident. I made sure I had skills, which was driving and heavy equipment operation, that I could bring to an employer in fields that were rife with good benefits, which is typically blue collar. In America, in general, blue collar, I don't even know if that's still true today, but for decades it's always been blue collar tended to have better benefits than white collar work. But I'm not alone. There are millions of Americans who love their health insurance, love their health care. And there are millions of Americans who are desperately in need of something better. But another thing I've noticed about single-payer healthcare, and again, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I've gotten this from people here in our chats. Each of these nations that has single-payer healthcare that I've heard of, every one that we've discussed, also offers a private option. And from what I'm told, Chrome's here. Chrome and I have talked about this. Chrome is in Scotland. And anybody who can afford the private health care takes it. The thing that raises a little bit of a red flag for me, though, is if single payer health care is good, why would you want to spend money on an identical service, on more health care? That tells me right there that maybe single payer is, while people might like the idea of not being out of anything out of pocket, even though they are, it's impossible to have free health care. You're paying for it one way or another. You're paying for it with some sort of tax somewhere down the line. But that just tells me, why would you need private health care if you can have your health care given to you without anything out of pocket? Chrome says, in the UK, yes, we have both private and public. Public is terrible. It's been dangerous for my family at times. See, now I'm glad Chrome says that, because that one's hard for me to speak on, because I've never lived in a system that had single payer health care. So if I say, well, I've heard this about it, I've heard that about it, immediately get, well, no, you don't know what you're talking about. It's great. It's all sunshine and rainbows. And if you have a hangnail, you get to see the doctor in minutes. And so you never know what's true. I leave that to the people who are experiencing it. And as Chrome says, and I've had a number of the Canadians here just livid about their healthcare, mostly what I hear from them is just exaggerated, insane wait times to see a medical professional. But yeah, Waffle, I don't think there's any way, there's no chance in hell our government could efficiently run something as massive as a single payer healthcare system. It would end, the cost overruns would be insane. And another thing they don't factor in that when they try and do the numbers on what it would cost is human nature. And you guys tell me if you disagree with this. Simple human nature would tell you if people aren't paying out of pocket to go to the doctor, a big hunk of people who want a day off from work or want a week off from work are going to be going to the hospital, to their doctor, to whoever, saying, oh, my back is bad, this is bad, can you take a look at this, can you take a look at that? I think the healthcare system would get absolutely overrun. I don't think it would work well at all. I think it would be an absolute travesty. And I don't think the numbers they talk about needing to pay for single payer healthcare are even close to what they're actually going to need. So who do you think they're going to come to for more money when they're not making ends meet on it? Wow. Beaches says, church paid for my healthcare as a kid. I had a tumor and they paid 100%. That's amazing. Wow, that's big. Wow. Phil said, do you think Trump will try to get rid of income tax? We were talking about that early in the stream. We'll go over it again because, people rotate through. They say he's gonna. I would love to see him do it. Just doing math for my own personal household budget. If they got rid of income tax and added a 25% tax on goods and services, I totaled it all up, and for me, I would come out about 15 to 20% better because I know how much I have to set aside for the federal government every month to pay my taxes, and I have a good idea of what I pay every month: groceries, clothing, whatever. Even factoring in 5 years of a loan on a car, everything. Excuse me, I would come out ahead. And they say they can do it for 23%. Even at 25%, I still come out better. And as I had said earlier, if you do that, what you're allowing is everybody's got to charge that 23% tax. So every consumer is going to be looking for the best deals. Now you're making Amazon and Walmart try to cut each other's throats even more on prices because everybody needs to be getting those good deals. And I think it's harder for people to imagine what that looks like, and it would have been for me at that time too, if you're working a regular W-2 job where your taxes are just taken out every week. And the reason I say that is just because you don't see them. You know what your paycheck's going to be, and that's how you live your life. So because and you do it for years. So when you start thinking about 25% more on everything I buy, my God, I won't be able to eat. People don't fully think about just exactly how much money is being grabbed out of their check every week. And now, because that 25% would cover not just federal income tax, that would still keep the Social Security money in the same place. Everything, the self-employment taxes, everything. That's to cover everything. The amount, supposedly that 23 to 25%, would cover everything that's paid in to the federal government. Waffle says, Trump did mess up with pardoning the violent rioters. Agreed. But the Democrats put them in prison with due process, so everyone's guilty as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody that was... But again, I try and stay consistent on things. Now, I don't like when a protest turns into a riot, and I think they should be put down and those people should be dealt with severely. So whether it was, because that's what they always come back at each other for, the riots of the summer of 2020 or January 6th, I feel the same way about both. Excuse me. No, I do think some people that, as near as we can tell, were milling around in there. I do think they should have been punished. I think they got sentences that were a bit on the harsh side because it was politically the thing to do at the time. But the ones who got violent, no, I don't think they should have been pardoned. Arkwinder, thanks for the super chat. Arkwinder says, rather not Trump keep saying he's going to make my country the 51st state. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I don't know where he... As I said earlier, I don't think he thinks that through carefully anyway, because, again, historically, in recent history, Canada tends to vote very much liberally. If you made them the 51st state, they're going to have a shit ton of electoral college votes. He might be removing Republicans from the presidency for who knows how long. Angel says, what counts as excessive spending is probably what people are worried about. Do they count needed services as weight? Well, no, 100. I agree with you. And that's why I say, when it was brought up earlier, somebody was saying, I really like what he's doing. And I like the office of DOGE. I like having that in place. And some of what they're finding is insane. It's egregious. You guys have seen it all out there. But yes, I do think there has to be follow-ups to everything they're doing. You're cutting this, you're cutting that. And that's where you would hope people in charge of those individual departments within the government can make a case and say, and it already happened at least once I know of, I forgot which department it was, but some people were on the chopping block and they basically came to the Trump team and said, this is what's going to happen if you cut these jobs. And the Trump team, and I know I'm making this oversimplified, but this is basically what happened. Looked at it and went, oh yeah, we kind of fucked up there, and they backed off of cutting those jobs. So I'm hoping, I think what he's doing with DOGE is a good thing, especially when I'm seeing some of the stuff that they're finding, the ridiculous amounts of money that they're finding. But yes, I do hope they don't go too far, and I do hope in those cases, because they're going to be there, when they do, it gets rectified in a hurry. Big Purple Pop says Trump said Zelensky's approval rate was 4% when it's estimated around 60. Well, I don't know what Zelensky's approval rate is, but I do know whenever Trump starts talking percentages, especially on approval polls for anybody, I tune out, because I don't recall a time where he's quoted them accurately, to be honest with you. As I said, just because I voted for the guy doesn't mean I can't see the bizarre things that he does. Thanks for the super chat. This is from Christian Jimgochin. And he says, Trump is no saint, but take bad with good. Political tribalism goes up as religion goes down. People need to believe in something. Russia is bad for invading, but the West instigated by expanding NATO after agreeing not to. You said that better than I could have. I tried to explain that earlier, why so we were talking about that. And of course, I have no love for Putin and Russia by any stretch, but Putin was put in a bad spot in some ways. He really was. And if you say that, immediately people are like, oh, you're pro-Russia. Not at all. You don't have to be pro somebody else to see that somebody aside from them did something that was questionable as well. That was well said. Hi, Tokyo. Yes, it was the nuclear research employees. Yes, you're right, Shelby. That's who it was. It escaped me. The ones I was talking about where they were going to cut them. And whoever's in charge of that department said, okay, this is what's going to happen if you cut these people, and I can show you why. And they were like, oh, okay, sorry. So you hope when they are making an egregious mistake, that gets immediately corrected. Elle says, I feel I should mention that we signed agreements after the fall of the Soviet Union that we would support Ukraine in the event of war. Really? I can't comment on that because I did not know that. And when you say support, though, Elle, how far would that support be? What form would it take? I mean, we did send many billions of dollars over there, even though Zelensky says apparently they didn't get a bunch of it. I don't know what's going on with that either. But we did send a lot of money. I would consider that support. If you're talking military support, I don't care what you signed. I would not support putting American boots on the ground in Ukraine. You really want to instigate World War III? So it would depend on what you mean by support, whether or not I would get behind that. But I did not know that. Thanks for super chat, Arkwinder. He says, quite literally on the Tucker Carlson show, Putin literally said, "I'm invading because I want Russian Empire back." Did he say that? I don't doubt it. But see, I don't worry as much. People talk about, okay, well, what's going to be next? Poland, Sweden? No, I don't think so, because no matter what agreements were signed, Ukraine is not part of NATO. And that, as far as diplomatically, that makes it much more murky. If you invade a NATO nation, then Putin is saying, okay, I'm willing to throw down and we're going to have World War III. You couldn't let it happen. I mean, no, shit, I don't want to get vaporized any more than anybody else does. But if he were to invade Poland, let's say, we don't have a choice. You don't have a choice then. With a non-NATO nation, and a nation where a big percentage of people in certain parts of that nation are Russian sympathizers or consider themselves Russian almost, it's a whole different story. Excuse me. Ronald says, I don't condone Russia's actions either, but I did see a video that explained how NATO was encroaching and violating part of the agreement they had with Russia, so I do understand their mentality. I agree with you. As I said, I was reading up on that too, and again, as soon as you say that, the feedback you get is, oh, you're a Russian sympathizer, oh, you love Putin. No. Again, you can see that somebody is bad, but yet this person over here wasn't doing the right thing either. Doesn't mean you're sympathizing with anybody. Big Purple Pop says, do you think Trump is appealing too much to Russian expansionism? Ukraine seems much more at risk than Israel, for example, speaking as a Jew. No, I don't think so yet. Just for basically going back to the things that others have mentioned here. It's an entirely different situation than if Russia were invading a NATO country. And I don't mean that to sound, I think it sucks that anybody dies. I think it sucks that Ukrainians are dying. I think it sucks that Russians are dying. Listen, I don't like the Russian government. I don't have anything against Russian people. I don't want their young men dying either, and they are. All over this stupid shit. That's sometimes what gets forgotten about in all this too. We talk about the geopolitics of it. It's the human element of it. You don't think do you really think any of those Russians wanted to be sent over there onto those front lines? How many moms and dads lost their children, which I can't think of anything worse than outliving your child over this stupid shit? No, I hate the governments. I hate a lot of governments, the way they're run, including ours sometimes. But saving some lives is worth somebody having to bite the bullet a little bit and maybe give up something that they possess. I don't know. Chrome says, people don't really get how negotiations work. He's trying to open up Putin to talks and diplomacy. That I agree with. That's all he's doing when he's being nice. I agree with that. I don't think it's a good idea in this situation to say Putin bad, put up the wall. I mean, you want to talk to everybody. You're hoping, in the best of all possible worlds, listen, conversation with somebody doesn't equate to weakness. I think it's better to have conversation than it is to just take a hard line stance. Waffle says, it's so stupid that the U.S. and Russia are going head to head. I feel like it should be Putin and the EU leaders talking to him. And yeah, I would agree. I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I agree with that, Waffle. Just as you said, just because of locality, just because of the map, you would think that it should be the EU leaders in direct talks with them. I agree with you there. I mean, I understand why it's Trump and Putin. Still, we have, the U.S. still has the, excuse me, what is still to this day the most powerful military on the planet. So, of course, that puts you in the midst of anything like that. But yeah, I would agree. You would think it would be EU leaders taking the lead. Excuse me. Arkwinder says, considering how Trump and Vance are pissing off Europe, very possible the EU goes its own way. It's possible, Arkwinder. I don't think so. Just because, and again, we know how hyperbolic Trump is and everything, but America, without the EU solidly by our side, that would be bad. The EU without America solidly by her side would be even worse, potentially, I think. And I think that cooler heads prevail on both sides to not allowing that to happen. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. But yeah, I mean, the EU, without knowing that, and that's where you cross that line in the sand. If any member of the EU is attacked, I believe America should absolutely be part of the response immediately. And I think both sides need to understand that no matter what differences they may have in approach on things, that needs to remain. And this is from Poking. Thanks for the super chat, my friend. And Poking says, people who will never listen to me about a certain project that is a 2025 is becoming more and more real. I'm terrified. But Poking, what are you terrified of? Project 2025, you have to remember something. Project 2025 was written by a hardcore, over-the-top conservative think tank. Excuse me. Trump is a conservative president. Now, I'm not making excuses for Trump. I'm just telling you the facts of it are you're going to see a vast majority of things Trump on his own would want to accomplish are going to directly intersect with Project 2025 because they're both conservative writings. Just that some of the stuff in Project 2025 obviously is over the top insane. I haven't seen any of that insanity yet trying to be put into policy. So no, it doesn't concern me at all. Arkwinder says Agenda 47 isn't much different from Project 2025, and that is the official policy of Trump. But that's exactly my point, Arkwinder. Agenda 47 is a conservative wish list, and it's exactly what Trump said he wanted to do. And of course they're going to intersect. But you have to remember, Project 2025 goes on for how many hundreds of pages? It's just a wish list of all this. Some of it's just basic conservative principle. A lot of it's just whacked out far right stuff, but you're still going to have that intersection in there. Angel Burr, thank you for the super chat. Oh, come on. And Angel says, I appreciate how balanced and level-headed you are. I don't know. I appreciate that. I don't know about that. The only thing I can say is I genuinely, if I look at a topic and I can get riled up just like anybody else, but I genuinely try to look at the other guy's side. I won't necessarily agree with it. I very well might come out of it with my views still intact as they are, but I'm willing to look at what it is that you have to say or what you think. That's why I say these things where people just come in and say, oh, Trump's a Nazi. Or you could turn around the other side and just come in and say, Kamala's a socialist. She's a communist. Whatever. No, neither one of those things are true. And if that's what you lead with, you're not even part of the conversation. Will G. J-I? Will G. We'll go with that. Thanks for the super chat. And Will says, I think people need to get off the internet and touch grass. Being plugged in like this has made people neurotic. And yeah, that's true. But you can almost understand it because, as I was saying earlier, you have to remember when you're on the internet, and specifically when you're on social media, it's rage that sells. It's all about rage engagement. But my wife doesn't follow politics closely at all. And I keep telling her, if you're going to read social media or you're going to read an article and you're only going to read the headline, don't read it. Because everybody who's posting something is trying to make you feel a certain way, and they don't care if it's based in fact at all. You have to then read more. And if it's on social media, you have to read the responses. If this person is saying A, but then the people in the responses are saying B, and B immediately makes more sense, the person saying A was probably full of shit. But yet, even today, it still happened again. She'll read something, she'll say, why is this happening? Or why is this person doing this? Why is this person doing that? And I'll say, they're not. That's the slant that side A or side B is putting on things to get people riled up and hope they don't really read more into it. Elijah says, guys have to remember that Trump's just a businessman. Well, I don't have a problem with just being a businessman. See, I've always said that the great thing about being president, and unfortunately Trump doesn't, well, he does a better job of taking advantage of this time than he did last, is you have access to the most brilliant minds in every field in the world. So if you have a president who's willing to utilize that access to help make his decisions, then you're cooking. Then you got something going. Do I think Trump does that enough? No, because I think he tends to believe he has the answers on things that he's not fully informed on. But that's why I don't have an issue per se with somebody going, okay, he's just a businessman, this, that, or the other, because if you really want to do the job well, you have access to all the information you need to make informed decisions on anything. Okay, Cage, thanks for being in. Harry the Dirty says, came back from my slave wage job. Did this fucker say that Zelensky is a dictator? What the fuck about Putin? Well, no, 100%. And Zelensky, as I said, Zelensky has done some things that are a little untoward, and Ukraine definitely has some skeletons in the closet. But yeah, I mean, you can find fault with Zelensky without a doubt. But if you find fault with Zelensky and find no fault with Putin, then there's something definitely wrong. I mean, Zelensky canceled elections, and that's okay. That's they're in time of war. I get that. That's a little unnerving. But when was the last time there was a real election in Russia? How many decades ago was that? Come on. Because somebody had a shot of unseating Putin in an election. Elijah says, I agree. I'm just hoping he keeps his mouth shut on social media. I mean, to be honest, that was his downfall. Yeah, and it's just, again, because you're the president of the United States. If you want to comment on anything, you are a phone call, or probably not even a phone call. You are a yell down the hall to an expert on that topic, whatever it may be. You have somebody with a wealth of knowledge about that on your staff. So before your fingers start pounding something out on your device, talk to that person. But that's what he doesn't do. Get that person in there and say, hey, listen, I want to post this. Does that sound right to you? But that doesn't happen. Well, again, Sean, I'm satisfied with what he's doing so far because, again, I've always been very big on border security, and I am fine with people who are here illegally being sent out, so I don't have any problem with that. I like the idea of DOGE, as long as DOGE is, as we were talking about, is trimming waste, and there's plenty of it, and they're finding an awful lot of trillions of dollars that are unaccounted for. That's really disturbing. So I'm good with that. As long as that system allows for, as was the case with the people from the nuclear department, that they have to understand mistakes can be made, and they could be cutting something that can't be cut. So as long as that office is flexible enough to understand when somebody in charge of that specific group comes to them and says, here's why you can't cut this, as long as they're receptive to that, it's okay. Hope so far in that one instance they were. Let's hope it stays that way. Angel says, I need to get going, but thanks for talking about politics in a civil and respectful way. Well, thanks to you guys. I mean, it's you guys that are civil and respectful about it all. That's why I love doing this stuff. And thanks for being in while you could, Angel. Sean says, his administration exposing what your tax dollars go to is a big one for, yeah. I mean, and what really bothers me is how many, trillions of our dollars are unaccounted for. We don't know. We don't even know where, what was it? Almost half of that money going to Ukraine went. Because Zelensky himself said he didn't get it all. So where the hell is that money? That just... And did you guys hear that everybody might be getting $5,000? They're going to take the DOGE savings that they found, put 20% of it directly onto the national debt, and return 20% of it to the American population. That would come out to $5,000 per household. And it's gone. Yeah, Ronald. I mean, that's fucking, that just, you talk about stuff that blows your mind. It's like, why are people not up in arms about this? Holy shit. And so much Social Security money that's going to places that it was never designed to go. And that's something we should all be able to get on the same side about, because that's not throwing a stone at either side. This is stuff that happened over years. It happened through administrations from the right and the left. There should, other than the fact that people hate Elon Musk, there should be no reason that we can't all get together and say, hey, where's that fucking money? And if we can find out who's responsible for it missing, do what needs to be done to them. Chrome says, so do you think all the gold is there? I don't know. That whole Fort Knox thing, I don't know. That's another concern. And any thoughts on 350-year-old Social Security takers? If that's true, for those who don't know, they're finding people who have been dead for 100 years still getting Social Security checks being cut. Somebody's getting them. Or if checks aren't being cut, that money's at least being allotted to them, and somebody's grabbing that money along the way. And that's what I'm talking about. I don't understand how can that be partisan to want to get that kind of stuff. Now, if you got problems that you think DOGE cut something that shouldn't have been cut, that's fine. That's a different conversation. But as far as just missing money and misappropriated money, how can that not be something that everybody wants to see taken care of? Dead Palmer says that's BS. 20% comes out to $100 per taxpayer. First of all, they didn't say, it said per household. It said per household, and they've got all the numbers. I mean, Dead Palmer's, you can call BS on it, but they posted the numbers. I don't have them in front of me. But it's not like they just picked that out of their ass. That's, excuse me. This is supposedly what DOGE has found so far that the government will save going forward. And that comes out, that 20% will come out to roughly, I'm sure they'll round up, round down, to $5,000 per household. I mean, that's the numbers they posted. And the fact still remains, if that's what they're sending out, that's what they're sending out. Chrome says, I mean, to be fair, it's not a partisan thing. Both Dems and Republicans are trying to stop DOGE because they want the gravy train to keep rolling. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff they're discovering is absolutely shocking. Kind of terrifying. Jesus Christ. Billions and then trillions of dollars unaccounted for. You know, when you're taking this money and say, okay, this goes to this part of the pie, and then somebody takes and goes, well, I'm going to take that part of that pie, and I'm just going to put it over here. We need to find the person who is moving that part of that pie out of the way there. I did see Kash Patel was brought in as FBI chief. Yep, I saw that. CJP says, Curtis, when you become supreme leader of the world, can you hire me as enforcer for the Ministry of Anime Titties? Yes, absolutely. Above average gamer says, screw 5K per household, dump the surplus towards the national debt. Let's make the U.S. dollar strong again. Yeah, um, I would support that. They're saying there is another 20% that would be dumped right onto the national debt. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like $3.5 trillion. Yeah, Chrome. It's just since, what was it, 2003, a total of $3.5 trillion in unaccounted for or money that was sent to places that it should have never been sent. And Phil says, I want my Doge bucks. Yeah. The only thing I can say about that, though, is we do know that an infusion of money into the economy like that is good for the economy. Simply because the vast majority of people aren't going to tuck it away in savings. The vast majority of people are going to spend it. So when you get $5,000, even if you spend on something superfluous, hell, I'm a Disney nut. If you get $5,000 to go to Disney World, you're still spending it around because now, you're buying airplane tickets and you're buying all that, you're buying merchandise, and that gets redistributed around into the economy. Mad the Saint says, why not tax the wealthy? Are you aware that the wealthy pay the vast, vast majority of income tax right now? Now, if you talk about taxing the corporations, I can get more in line with you because corporations get far too many tax breaks, way too many. But as far as individuals, the wealthy pay a huge, huge hunk of the income taxes in America. By far the biggest hunk. Madsen is how much money is paid on USAID? 0.5%. That's not the only thing that was cut. We're not talking about just USAID. Chrome says, taxing megacorps doesn't work because it's write-offs, right? Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Our insanely complicated, unnecessarily complicated tax code. And that's why getting rid of income tax and simplifying everything would just be, I think it would make things so much simpler. And I know it's hard for people who, and I understand why. As I said, I know it's hard for people who are working a regular job, getting a regular paycheck, a W-2 job. I know it's hard for them to understand. It's like, how can you say that paying a 25% tax on everything is good for me? You got to add up. The federal government is taking a lot of money out of your check every week. It's just you don't really see it. And again, it's understandable because you've learned to live on what's left after the government takes their hunk. If all that money that the government's taking is now all of a sudden in your check, I think you're going to find that paying 25% more on your goods and services still leaves you with a net surplus. King Archel says Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons because the U.S. and U.K. promised to protect them if anything happened. I don't know the details of that agreement, but I will say this, King Archel. Okay, the EU and America has sent a lot of money and a lot of military supplies over to Ukraine. Are you saying you don't think that's enough and we should send boots on the ground? Regardless of anything that was signed, do you think this conflict is worth making World War III probably a 50-50 chance, which is what it would be if you had U.S., U.K. boots on the ground in Ukraine? Yeah, I agree with that one, Waffle. It says 2025, don't deport illegals, who's going to pick our crops? 1850, don't free the slaves, who's going to pick our crops? That, and you see that a lot. People talk about, well, it's people here illegally that are doing the work that we don't want to. You don't want to go into the fields and pick crops for $5 an hour. No, nobody should. And you shouldn't want people here illegally to be doing it either. Holy shit. I have found that if you pay right, you can get it. If you pay properly, you can get someone to do any job. I was a garbage collector. I was a garbage man for years. It's a stinky, nasty, especially in the summer, vile job. But they paid me good and I had great benefits. I'll fuck with those maggots all day long. Right. VSS Ventura says income tax was created to fund the First World War and had its infant beginnings at the outset of the Civil War. Yeah, a lot of people aren't aware that income tax wasn't something that's been with us the entire history of our nation. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. Austin says, what is your opinion on the plans of the rest of the documents of the three major assassinations of the 60s being declassified? I'm all for it. I think declassification is a great thing. I think people should be allowed to know the truth, or as much as we know to be the truth in any of those situations. Ted Palmer says field workers by and large are here legally with work visas. Well, I think it depends on where you are. And I know, like, when I lived in California, I lived and worked at a apartment complex. It was right across the street from the California State Medical Facility, which is the prison they originally put Charles Manson in. And now we had tons of yard work to be done, tons of grass. So that was contracted out. They had big crews. And I know for a fact, just from talking to the guy who ran them, now this is just an anecdote, but talking to the guy who was in charge of the whole thing, none of them were here legally. So I don't know what the numbers are on that as far as who's here legally on work visas and who isn't. Excuse me. I know in that case, his crew was big and it was 100% here illegally. Income tax was declared illegal when it was originally proposed. I had heard that. I had read that. Sean says, I don't want Canada to be the 51st state, not because I care, but because it'd be California 2.0. Well, that's what I've been saying, Sean. I don't understand why any Republican would push for that anyway. And with their population, they're going to have a shit ton of electoral votes. And you might just be sealing the presidency for the Democrats for the foreseeable future, for sure. Big Purple Pop says the owners who incentivize people to work illegally need to pay for deportation costs. This should be a legal issue in that part. I agree with that. I think the people who knowingly hire people who are here in the country illegally are just as much at fault as the people who came here illegally. Evan says, "Hi, hair looking nice." Yeah, thanks. Like I say, it's gotta go in more on top. We'll see what it looks like. Did you hear Trump made himself in charge of Kennedy Center? I did, and has already started canceling performances such as a gay man's choir group. His priorities are insane. Yeah, I agree with that last sentence. His priorities are weird. I wouldn't even say priorities. It's just some of the things he's interested in at all are weird. I mean, I like a lot of what he's doing, and then you get things like that. And you get, as I said, and you get Canada as the 51st state. And you get Gulf of America. Come on, who gives a shit about any of that stuff? And as far as the Kennedy Center, if you wanted to say, okay, because I've said this long before Trump, I'm not a big supporter of a lot of money going to any form of entertainment because if people want to see it, they'll buy tickets. So, nobody is subsidizing you going to an Aerosmith concert back in the 80s or 70s or 60s. Wow, they're old, or 60s. You sell tickets. If you sell enough tickets, you perform. If you can't sell enough tickets, you don't perform. So I've never been big on that. So if you wanted to say that the budget strings are going to get tighter, all right, you can make a case for it. But Trump needing to take it over and then just, as you said, to start canceling stuff, why? I don't get. I don't understand that. Who cares? Sean says, we will annex Canada and call it gay North Dakota. Please don't give them any ideas. Oh, God. Chrome says, I genuinely am a bit worried that Starner will send UK troops in. Yeah, Chrome, what's going on there? I mean, that's... Regardless of any agreement signed, Ukraine's not a NATO nation. If a NATO country sends troops on the ground in there, you are greatly elevating the chances of World War III. Greatly. Waffle says, make Cartman the governor of gay North Dakota. Well, we know that the gay people and the gingers, which, well, I used to be a ginger. Not much ginger left in here. We're in trouble. Sako Bado says, Curtis, what are your thoughts on the newly announced Avatar 7 Havens TV series? I haven't even heard about that. I hadn't even heard about it. Mad the Saint says, Gulf of America is a distraction. He's flooding the news with crap being pushed through his most horrific idea. See, now I think you're giving him way too much credit. I don't think it's a distraction at all. I think it's just another one of his weird ideas, the weird shit that bothers him or he thinks needs to be done. I don't think he would even... He likes the chaos. He's not going to try and hide it by, oh, if I do this, I can slide this through. He wants to slide whatever he wants to slide through right in your face. There's no reason to believe anything different. He likes doing it. He embraces chaos. He's not afraid or trying to hide it. It's just the Gulf of America is just another one of his weird things. Artist says, I just can't believe Trump lying about it being their fault. I'm not sure which we've talked about so many things. I apologize, Artist. We've talked about so many things. I'm not sure which one you're referencing. Mad the Saint said, just look at the understaffed FFA. He fired, planes crashed, fired more FFA. There has been no, and you can look this up, discernible changes so far anywhere in the day-to-day operations of airports. I looked it up when these things took place. And if you actually look back at the official government statistics on incidents with aircraft, including crashes, this year is running no statistically different than it has for this month in each of the past 4 years. So, I mean, those are fun things if you dislike somebody to try and equate to them, but it just doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Oh, Trump lying about Ukraine. Well, yeah, to say that Ukraine started it is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. If anything, and I don't believe this, but I was going to say, before you blame Ukraine, you'd have a better chance of blaming the UN. You could say that the UN was making Putin nervous with its overtures in the area and maybe bringing Ukraine into the fold. So, yes, I agree with that. To try and blame Ukraine. I think there's a lot of issues with Ukraine and their government. But trying to say that it's their fault that the war is taking place, no, that's wrong. Dragon says, Bush was a Republican who relied on distractions. Trump tells you what he's going to do and says, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, that's what I mean. I agree with you, Dragon. Trump is not the sort to give a distraction. As I said, he embraces the chaos. He doesn't try and hide it from you. There you go. Lunatic Knight says the U.S. president and the Mexican president should have a 1v1 golf tournament. The winner determines who has naming rights to the golf. I've heard, though, I don't know this to be true. I've heard, he plays an awful lot. Trump's actually a pretty good golfer for an old fart, I've heard. I don't know, is she a good golfer? That might be an interesting way to take it. Excuse me. All right, guys, I gotta go. I've been catching up on the news, and I just thought this would be a fun stream to have. I appreciate y'all hanging out, and once again, we had as volatile a titled stream as you can, and got through it all without any real vitriol or anything. I'm just so proud of that. It's just so much fun to be able to do that. I enjoy these streams so much. Now, when this stream goes up on the channel, when it goes to VOD, you'll have a lot of people who, I've noticed this happens in the past, who are too afraid to say something while it's live. They'll come in and start screaming all sorts of hyperbolic nonsense for one side or the other. They won't say it during the stream because, they'll be made to look like a fool. But you'll have them come in there. But during the stream, we've kept the conversation, I think, pretty above the board. This is really a lot of fun. I enjoy this. I have a good time talking about all this, and every chance I get, I'll come back up and we'll do some more. But thank you guys. Thanks for all the conversation. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you guys again as soon as I can.